What's up guys, Carmine here, and welcome to my House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 2 review, and I gotta say off the bat, this is definitely one of the best episodes they've ever done so far, and I would argue it deserves its place among some of the best Game of Thrones episodes they've ever done, and I'll tell you why right now. One of the things that makes the earlier seasons of Thrones so good was how, oftentimes, some of the best scenes were just two people in a room talking and being real with each other. It wasn't the dragons, or the sword fighting, or the magical craziness, no. It was just two characters having a conversation that felt genuine, that felt real. Whether it was Cersei and Robert talking about their marriage in Season 1, Tywin and Arya talking about her dad in Season 2, Jaime and Brienne in Season 3 talking about him being the Kingslayer, and most of Oberyn and Tyrion's stuff in Season 4. It was all so phenomenal, and we got that here in spades. The entire episode seems like they got new writers who hated the tropey television bullshit from last season and said, what if these people were self-aware and were tired of each other's crap as much as we are? Yeah, I feel as though that's appropriate here. Also, before we get into the review, I keep seeing some of you guys telling me that you're not getting notified of my videos when they're uploaded, and that's YouTube being a little finicky. The best way to remedy that is to interact with the video by commenting and liking. When we tell you guys to do that, it's not because it makes the video's metrics look good, but it's more you're telling the algorithm to send you notifications from us because you've interacted with the video. Or follow me on social media, I post on there all the time. Links are in the description below. And also, if you disagree with anything I've said in regards to the episode, definitely let me know why in the comments, because I'm genuinely curious as to what you didn't like here, because there was so much to like. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get into it. We start immediately in the aftermath of the blood and cheese scene, and again, just like with episode 1, episode 2 shows us that Aegon is not just a Joffrey clone, he's his own character who's complex and nuanced. I said this last time, and I'll say it here again. My biggest complaint about the Green characters in season 1 is that they had no sympathetic characters, other than Helaena, of course, and here, you can't help but feel bad for this guy. I don't recall one time feeling bad for Joffrey in all of Thrones, and I felt bad for Cersei maybe once or twice. So far, we're only 2 episodes in, and yeah, I get it. It's crazy how different all of these people are now from how they were in season 1. It's like night and day, and I love it. The actor here does a great job of conveying his anger, his sadness, his frustration over the loss of his son, and it's great. I also love Otto coming in here, ever the politician, wanting to capitalize on this moment as an opportunity to sway public opinion in their favor, while Aegon looks on in disbelief. It's a great moment, and we'll get back to Otto in just a moment, because honestly, he is my MVP for this episode, and there's a very good reason why. Briefly, I want to talk about the funeral procession, and very well done, but did anyone else feel as though the body, or at least the head, was going to fall off when the cart got stuck? The entire time I was like, no, they're not going to do that, and I honestly wasn't sure. As awful as this is to say, it definitely would have driven the point home of how awful Rhaenyra is, but I'm glad they didn't go that route, but they did get me for a moment. With the music, the shots of Helaena being uncomfortable and all that, they got me. And I will say, I feel as though they would have done this in season 1 because of how ridiculous it was with the violence and gore. But no, they didn't do it, which I'm glad for, but they had me on edge. They had me for a minute there. Speaking of edge, Daemon during that council scene is literally the meme of the guy at the party in the corner. This one here, standing there with his shit-eating grin while everyone is going into this. They don't know that it was I who was behind that murder. Like, it's literally him the entire time. He was that meme for me. But then, him and Rhaenyra together, oh my god, the argument they have, my god, please guys, tell me I'm not the only one who felt like this was a married couple I'd known for years having a big fight right in front of me. I love the one line from Rhaenyra calling him out for using her as a tool to grasp his stolen inheritance, and his anger at that, and then how, as a girl, she saw his bad boy ways as a challenge that she could overcome. That felt real. That felt like the person who wrote that line went through something similar when they were younger. I don't know, like, I said this in my trailer review a few months back about this scene when they showed it, and I'll say it here because it still reigns true. It doesn't feel like Daemon is fighting their enemies, but his enemies, and now she finally knows that. Daemon, on the other hand, holy shit, he is unhinged, and I fucking love it. Accusing Viserys of being weak and afraid of being in his shadow, that he is the leader of men, and that Rhaenyra only got what she got as an act of vengeance against him. But it was this line here, and I'm quoting him, "He knew your legacy, unlike mine, would never outshine his own." God damn, I love how insane he is for that. The guy's a textbook psychopath. He's quick to act without thinking, no empathy or self-awareness, egotistical, narcissistic, prone to violent outbursts. He's ridiculous, and you just gotta love him for it. He's so unpredictable that it's just fun to watch, and in this fight between them, it was a long time coming. This whole argument, it had to be done. It was great, it felt real, and I don't know, the writers this time around, they did such a good job into tapping into what the audience thinks about these people and was able to turn that into an actual believable argument between these two. Rhaenyra's frustration over how crazy he is and his frustration that nobody can get done what needs to be done but him. It was a chef's kiss of a scene. And finally, let's talk about that scene. You know, the one where Rhys Ifans definitely earns all the rewards they could possibly throw at him, and then some. I know you guys would get very annoyed at me if I didn't go into too much detail, but honestly, what more could I say other than how brilliant he was in this scene? You know that Ben Affleck meme of him just not having a good day, trying to relax while smoking a cigarette? They somehow managed to do that meme as a character the entire episode with Otto, and it just works. What makes this scene even better is that Criston Cole is there, and just when you thought you hated him so much, somehow you can still hate him a bit more, even when he's not saying or doing much. Someone said to me how Criston Cole is the type of guy who somehow fails upwards, and yeah, that's definitely his entire character, and why I hate him so much. But Otto Hightower, I gotta apologize to my man here for calling him the Diet Coke Tywin Lannister last season. He's so much more than that, this season at least, and seeing him coming to conflict with Aegon over his handling of the situation is great. Though I will say Otto seems quite different than he was back during season 1, and that's something I'll go into more depth during the podcast discussion for this episode, but for this episode here, he really shined the most, and his final scene with Aegon was my favorite of the episode, and one of my favorite of the entire franchise in general, both Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. And based on his final conversation with Alicent in this episode, it seems like he won't be around that much, which is a shame, but at the same time, I'd rather he go out on a high note and come back later than risk being involved in the entire season and then just having moments where they fail to utilize his character adequately. Before we get to the Kingsguard fight, I want to briefly touch on some of the other scenes this episode. First and foremost, Jace and Baela were great. It was two people, again, having a candid conversation about their families. The fact that Baela knows that Harwin Strong is his true dad is great, and their conversation here was awesome. Once again, it felt like a real, true conversation between two people who know each other. However, I think we can all agree that the best relationship, possibly in the entire series, is Corlys and Rhaenys. Props to both of the actors for making me believe that these two are in a real loving marriage. We also get to see Aemon's more tender side with the broth of Madam from season 1, and him saying that, and I think we all knew this already, that he regrets how the situation with Luke turned out. I will say though, someone please get this man a double baconator or something. He's so skinny, I'm afraid a strong gust of wind will blow him away. And of course, Rhaenyra and Mysaria is not something I expected to enjoy, but I did. In all of her appearances, Mysaria was just a whatever character who just comes in and goes whenever the plot needs her to be there. And I'll go into more detail about this later, but I feel as though they wasted her character. However, here, it feels like they're getting somewhere with her, and hopefully she becomes Rhaenyra's version of Varys, since Larys with Aegon is Littlefinger. And of course, we gotta talk about Criston Cole and Eric. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people in my comment section question why there was a lack of guards in the royal apartments from the last episode, and I love how that actually comes up in this conversation. I love that the writers are not falling into the usual television tropes of characters not saying what any normal person would say in this situation. Cole trying to blame someone else for his failure, and Eric blaming Cole for not stationing someone to guard Helena. Yeah, this is a real conversation. Yes, this was a good confrontation. Yes, this needed to happen. We definitely need more scenes like this going forward of characters realizing that the situation they're in is bullshit and call it out. I love this. And before we wrap it up, let's talk about the Eric versus Eric scene. It was fine. At some point I was questioning why nobody thought it was safer to have these two men who look alike to style their beards or hair different so we can tell them apart, just in case a situation like this could go down, but here we are. I won't lie, I thought it was a little funny at one point you can't even tell the difference between them as they're fighting to the death, and yes, I get that's the point, but still, the scene did its job. This is a tragedy, not only will Rhaenyra, going forward, be more paranoid, which we saw the beginnings of in this episode with multiple backstabs, but also to kick off the war where brother will be going against brother, and in this situation, quite literally. It wasn't my favorite scene, but it was fine, it did its job. But overall, I really enjoyed this episode, if you couldn't already tell. It did such a good job of giving us what we loved about the original Game of Thrones, and delivered on that time and time again in this episode. I also hate to say that because at this point, House of the Dragon can stand on its own, and I want to show that respect that it definitely earned, especially from this season so far. But at the end of the day, we all stand on the shoulders of giants, so you can't not mention it, you know? But it's still a phenomenal episode with lots of great moments between characters, and hopefully the rest of the season can retain this level of quality. But that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, please be sure to leave a like and a comment. It does help out a lot, and like I said earlier, it'll let the algorithm know to let you know when I upload more videos. And of course, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and follow us on all socials to stay up to date with what's happening this season. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.